escrow. Sounds like I'm speaking another language.
Right.
So for all first-time home buyers or even ones that don't buy that often, we're going to talk about what an escrow is.
Yep.
But in the meantime, Cliff with ERA and...
I'm Bex with Sun American Mortgage.
Bex, why are you so tan?
It's summer. You gotta get out in
What
that
have you been
sunshine.
doing? I'm like a Florida boy and I'm white.
Sunshine. No, I got to lay out by the pool this weekend. So.
Oh. Well, didn't you go to a lakes
Yes.
just a couple weeks ago? Where was that?
Yes. If anybody's checked out, it was called Gunlock down in southern Utah.
Gunlock.
Yes, Gunlock. Yep.
All right. And here, Jordanelle's pretty nice, the reservoir.
Yes. I need to go to Jordanelle. I heard East is also a good one.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
But this year I'm going to make it a goal to go to Jordanelle.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll be as tan as you someday.
Okay.
Anyways,
There we go.
Give us an update, market report.
Yes. Okay. So rates are about where we've seen them. Conventional true rate is 7.375. Advertised rate we're seeing is 6.75 about, with a point buy down, depending on the situation. And then on FHA, we're seeing true rate 6.625. Advertised rate, we're seeing 5.875. So that's a little bit lower than what we've seen.
Yeah.
So a buy down, that goes to show that those also fluctuate. So, yeah.
And just before we started this video, we were chatting. She's been getting pretty busy. What do you attribute that to for the uptake of buyers?
Yeah, I think people are just realizing that this is where rates are at, and if they want to get into the market, now is the time, because rates are going to stay where they're at probably for a while. You never know. Things can always change. But if you want to get in the market, prices are only going to go up. So
yeah. Sorry for the dings.
You're busy too.
I know. My text messages are coming in. But that's not ding saying this is over, but you may hear some more dings. Well, good. That's good. That's good news. Good you're busy.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get some more from these videos.
Yeah.
So again, at the end, we'll put up the QR code. We just did a free consultation last week.
Yep.
Young couple, they're not ready yet, but they'll probably be ready in about 8, maybe 12 months.
Yeah, we were able to give them some good steps to work on so that they can be ready in about 6 to 8 months.
So sign up. We were on the phone, I think, about 35 minutes.
Yeah.
And
that's all it
Bex
takes.
gives her a checklist to what she can do to improve her credit score, to get out of some debt, and then we're going to talk again in about 6 months. Yeah. So great. All right, Bex, escrow.
Yeah.
Wonder where that name came from. But anyways, we don't know, right?
Right?
Maybe you do.
I don't know.
But escrow, what is an escrow account? I'm just going to clear one thing up. When you, at least in the state of Utah, when you put in your earnest money deposit, and we've talked about that in past videos, that can go in an escrow account. We're going to ask Bex about that in a second. Or it can go into a brokerage real estate trust account.
Which is more common.
Our brokerage actually prefers that because it's easier to get the earnest money deposit back.
If need be.
To the buyer. So it's actually a protection for the buyer and for the seller.
Yeah.
So that goes into that trust account. But sometimes it does go into escrow. We're going to talk about that. But can you just explain briefly what is an escrow account and how does it work?
Yeah. So essentially an escrow account is set up. It's a third party that helps divvy out all of the funds related to the purchase of a new property or the sale of a property, depending on which side you're on. So in that case, it's like Cliff said, escrow is there to hold the earnest money, or it can be put into a trust account by the brokerage. Either way, though, it's a third party that's holding the funds. So that way they are held until certain conditions are met. So with earnest money, it's usually, due diligence, finance and appraisal, all those different deadlines that are on the contract.
Who usually, let's say if it's in connection with a closing, right?
Yeah.
Who opens that escrow account?
Yeah, in most cases, it's going to be a title company in Utah. Title companies help manage that. They have an escrow officer. They set that up. They handle all of the funds in regards to the transaction.
So what ends up happening is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the buyer comes in and they give a down payment. That can be a wire transfer or actually a check and even cash.
Yep.
Where does that money go?
It gets put into the into the escrow account.
Okay, and then later on, sometimes that day or the next day, you as a mortgage company will fund, right? Yep. So you'll pay the rest of the amount. So let's say $500,000, they put $10,000 down, they still owe $490,000.
Yep.
Where does that $490,000 go from the mortgage company?
Yep. So that comes from the lender to the seller's escrow and then gets paid out to the seller.
So that money will actually go right to that escrow account and then all 500,000 will get shipped off
Yep.
to the seller.
Yep, exactly.
So you like my sound effects there?
Yep.
So yeah, escrow account is and it's a total third party, so they're not attached, which is a protection for
Yep.
both the buyer and the seller.
Yep.
So it's
Keeps it very above board.
Yeah. Okay, so that's for closing the transaction. So that money gets put in the escrow account, gets sent to the seller, it's done. What about after they're done? Now the mortgage is set up, now they have to pay. Is there an escrow account for that?
Yes. In most cases, because we've got property taxes and we've got home insurance, an escrow account is opened for those types of payments. So they collect throughout the year, saves up, just gets put into that account, and then when those payments are due, the escrow officer then pays those things.
Okay.
You can, in some cases, choose to waive the escrow account, and you can manage those things on your own, but you have to be not a high risk borrower, and it requires a lot more on your behalf to make sure that those things get paid on time. Otherwise you get nasty letters, and there's potentially even fees associated if those things don't get paid. So I think it's always a good idea to escrow unless there's a specific reason you don't want to.
Yeah, you're not really losing any money,
Nope.
right? And it's interesting, when I sold my first house, we sold it. I wasn't in real estate then, I understand. About a month later, I get a check from the mortgage company.
Yep.
Why did I get that?
So they will evaluate, property taxes are set by the county. So that again is completely separate. We just collect what is required to be collected to get those paid. Each year those things are assessed, and sometimes we do buffer the accounts a little bit at the beginning of the transaction when the loan closes. And so sometimes there's a little bit of money left in the account, and if that's the case, then you get it back at the end of the year. If your property taxes go up, that could also impact your escrow account.
Yeah.
Each year over year.
So usually when you sell, you will get, like we got $1,800 back,
Yes.
and I wasn't even expecting I got an $1,800 check in the mail, and
Yep.
I'm like, woohoo!
Yep.
Took my wife out for dinner.
Yeah. So it depends. It's very case by case. It's going to depend on what time of year you close and if your property taxes have been paid for the year or not. So all those things do have an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're in the transaction, there will be an escrow account set up.
Yeah.
Third party, total neutral. Again, that's a protection for the buyer and seller.
Yeah, the last thing that I'll say about that is a lot of people think, okay, well, maybe I want to waive escrow because my payment will be lower and my interest, the amount that I'm being charged on interest will change. That's not the case. The escrow amounts don't get charged the interest.
Right.
So don't think that has any impact on the interest rate that you've selected and you've locked in. That is just on the principal, and then the escrow stuff is added after that. So
Now, if they pay off their mortgage and they own the house outright, will there
Yeah.
be an escrow account still?
no. So because there's no loan to attach it to, most of the time after your loan is paid off, you are responsible to pay those property taxes and home insurance on your own.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could if you wanted to go through a title
Yeah,
company, but
you
most
absolutely
people
could.
just pay their own taxes
Yeah.
and insurance. So.
Yeah, but you definitely could if you wanted to just make your life easier.
Good.
Yeah.
So those are questions. A lot of times people don't ask what an escrow account is. If you have any more questions, feel free. Just
Yeah.
use the QR code. We'd be happy to go through a consultation. These are questions we can answer because we do it every day.
Yeah. Let us know.
All right. If you have any more questions you'd like to hear on this channel, let us know.
Let us
Shoot us a
know.
text or put it in the comments, and we'll set that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other than that, have a great week, guys. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Bex.
See ya.